When I started, there was almost 2 feet between that tree and the container. Now it's almost touching up. When I move this end over in that direction, that'll open that gap up again a little bit. Anyway, it moves easily. All you need is a couple of chains, Harbor Freight ratchet puller, come along they call it, and a handy tree to serve as an anchor point. And I had a few pieces of wood on there to try to protect the tree, although one of them fell out. Alright, now to unrig the back end, I need to jack up the front end, move that telephone pole over to the right as much as I can, then find an anchor point where I can pull this end. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find a tree. I might be able to pull from the other container. It's so heavy it might stay still. I might try that, but I'll have to watch that I don't move it, because I don't want to move it. Okay, that's right where it needs to be. This foot was over here, so I moved it almost a foot, and I needed to move it 10 inches, so you can tear up your jack doing that. You want to make sure you're on slightly soft ground. If you do that on a hard surface, you'll break the foot plate of the jack. If the ground's too soft, you'll just make holes. So you kind of need a medium hardness of ground. I think I got 8 feet between the two containers. Now the concrete footings stick out good 6 inches each side, so maybe just slightly less than 7 feet of width at the ground level. But I'm going to stick a boat in there. The boat's wider than the trailer, although the boat's not anywhere near 8 feet wide. So, and then I can make a roof that spans between the tops of them out of 12-foot joists, 2-foot overhang on each side. This container on the left is it's gonna sit slightly lower than the one on the right. That way the water will run off towards the left container. And when I block up the left container, I'm not going to have it exactly level. I'm going to have it leaning slightly to the left so that the water will then roll off the left side of it and not towards the center. This container here already leans slightly to the right, so most of the rainwater should roll off to the right. So there shouldn't be much in the way of rainwater running down the inner sides of either container. There'll be some, because I'm not going to make it watertight up there. The roof is corrugated. It's just too difficult or not worth the hassle. Little water running down the walls won't hurt anything, as long as the boat's not sitting against the walls. The water won't run into the boat. All right, back to work. Okay, it's all blocked up. It's not perfect. I did not excavate any dirt, dig any dirt out of those, out from underneath those footings. So it'll shift around a little bit, but if necessary, down the road I can jack it up. Although this one over here I haven't had to mess with since I put it in. These piles of blocks at the rear ended up a little more elaborate than I intended, but that's what worked out, and I had the blocks, and that's fine. You'll notice I got a piece of steel plate, 1/4-inch steel plate, 12-inch by 12-inch steel plate on top of each set of blocks. That's so the foot of the container doesn't point load those concrete blocks and try to crack them. It's hard to see, but I now have about 5, maybe 6 inches of clearance between the tree and the container. That's good enough. Just noticed one of those Lone Star ticks on a pile of concrete blocks back there. They carry all kinds of diseases. I treated my boots, socks, jeans, and my t-shirt with that permethrin stuff. I'm hoping that keeps the ticks off me. So that may need a revisit every now and then to reblock it, but it's okay. All the tools I used, the big long 2x4 was a substitute for a tape measure, which I forgot to bring, so I was using that to measure the distance between the containers to keep them parallel. You don't need all of this stuff. You could get by with a couple of hydraulic jacks, plus these lifting lugs. I bought these off of Amazon. These were the cheapest ones they had, about 30 bucks a piece. There were a couple of reviewers said the weld started to come apart. But one reviewer said that he was going to re-weld his, and that if he had ordered the steel cut to weld up his own, it probably would have cost him as much, if not more money. I think a big issue is when you're lifting, don't have the jack lifting way over here at the right end, right at the far end where my thumb is. That puts a heck of a lot of strain on that gusset. Push the jack as far back down in there as you can, so it's lifting as close to the rear of the lifting lug as possible. That's a farm jack, sometimes called a high lift jack. High lift is a brand name. I jacked up that container and also my shed turned into a cabin with 2 of those. And so you could do the job with 2 of those. You could do the job with 1, although it'll be a lot of extra moves involved. Plus, if something happens where you get that one jack jammed or something, you need another one to get it loose. So 2 of those high lift jacks would do the job, or just 2 of the hydraulic jacks would do the job. Got a come along, ratchet come along for pulling, and a couple of chains. There's one chain there. Now you can use this high lift jack in place of the come along. You can actually hook a chain in the one end of the jack and another chain in the other end of the jack, and you can use that to pull. The ranchers use that to stretch, use those to stretch barbed wire. So you could pull with those. If you buy 1 or 2, check the pound ratings. That one there is from Northern Tool. I think it's rated for 7,000 pounds. I've got an old actual high lift that I've had since 1977. It's rated for 7,000 pounds. Harbor Freight has something similar, but I think theirs is only rated for 5,000 pounds. Now, these empty 20-foot containers are supposed to weigh about 5,000 pounds, so a 5,000 pound jack ought to be good enough to jack up one end. Again, the tricky part is when you got one end blocked up and you're working on the other end. If you got to jack up the other end, you want to jack it up evenly. In fact, one jack in the center might be a good idea, because if you jack up this corner here, you're going to lift that corner, and you're also going to be lifting that corner up there, which means it's sitting on one corner and your jack, and that sucker will try to flip one way or the other on you, instead of trying to slide one way or the other. It will happen. I had it happen to me on that one. That thing moved around a little bit. This one here tried to move a little bit on me once, but I was expecting it, so it wasn't a big issue. But anyway, there's not too much to blocking one of these. It moved. It slid around fairly easily on those telephone poles. I could have, the front here, I probably could have just hooked it to the pickup truck and yanked it a little bit. No room to get a pickup truck in the back to pull the back the other way, but if they're empty, they're not that hard to move around. Now, like I said, eventually I'm going to put a roof between them. Since these things are sitting on the ground and frost heave will move them around, and the ground sinking will move them around, I'll probably make about a 12-foot wide roof to fit that about 8-foot wide space between the containers. I won't fasten the roof down to the containers. It'll just be sitting on top of the containers. Now, I will tie it down with cables, probably to those corner brackets, so that the roof doesn't go sailing in the wind. You can't just let it sit there from gravity, because it will go sailing. But if I tie it down with cables to those corner fittings, then it should not go sailing, and it can move around a little bit if these containers shift a little bit. If I have to jack one up, I might have to jack it up, a little extra high, and it might lean a little bit more one way. And if that roof is rigidly attached to both containers, you're going to tear something up. Yeah, the one on the right sits a little bit lower than one on the left, so the rainwater should run off. I think I got it leaning the red one leaning slightly to the left. I'll see. I have not put a level on it. It's almost time for me to hit the road. I wasn't even expecting to get this much done today, so I'm pretty happy. Next time I'll have to drill holes in the doors to install a better lock. There are places where you put padlocks on these things. I got this padlock on this one. The trouble is, these, you can put a sturdy padlock on there, but these metal pieces, it's not that hard to cut these metal hasps off. And then, it doesn't matter what lock you put on it. So I put on a big master lock, what they call a puck lock. Yeah, I had a backing plate for that. I'll have to forgot I need to cut a backing plate for that. Okay. Alright, I got to start putting my toys away here and start thinking about hitting the road. hitting the road home.